بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. Assalamu alaikum.
So, to me, the bare minimum that should be at least transferred to the audience after the retreat as a topic would be to make the distinction between what a real cause is versus what an association is. So the real cause, because generally we take association as causation. So this should have been the minimum thing that should be the most clear thing, at least out of the retreat. So practically speaking, let's say I put the seed, I put water, I put soil, I get plant. I don't put seed, but I put water and earth. I don't get plant. So seed has some role in the making of plant. And in the retreat, with the example of this Paulo's dogs, the point that we were trying to make there was this is an association, it's not a causation really. And as a alternative explanation for that, we came up with Ibrahim alayhi salam's story, saying that look at the effect first, dissect it into its properties, and see if the cause, apparent cause, has any of those qualities. So we came up with this alternative explanation or way of finding the cause or the real cause. But again, day in, day out, I mean, it sounds okay over paper, or theoretically it sounds okay. But especially as it comes closer to human, our free will, or the things that becomes questions of morality especially, things get as if a little bit blurry. For example, let's say there is this criminal, and the guy is very aggressive, and he kills several people. What they do is they open up his skull, take this part of his brain, and the guy becomes perfectly tame. So the question is, well, then this region of the brain has something to do with the aggressiveness of this guy. So ideally, I mean, the way that I understand, association, there's nothing again but association. There is no causation here. But I'm not sure if this was clear enough, or maybe there is more than that, because it was very quick. We very quickly went over this topic during the retreat. And although it was mentioned twice in some session, in my session, it tried to distinguish association versus the real cause. But we might want to talk about those real examples and how to really make sense of them. Because even once, let's say, we say that, okay, causes have no effect, still comes the question, but still we remove this portion of the brain, and he became okay. What am I going to say with that?
So why don't we ask the people that were like listeners in the retreat and see like what's clear to them and what's not clear to them,
Okay.
and talk about those subjects? Because like,
So this is not clear for me. I mean, I don't know what the others, but
I mean, like the difference between the causation and
not the
association.
difference between causation and association, but at least to me, the question starts like, what do we mean with association? And it's just another word. It's like without feeling inside, like what we really mean with that. To me, it's like denying things.
Just replacing the word and using
Exactly,
meaning
yes.
the thing.
As if, I mean, I'm not saying that we are denying something, but it sounds like there's no difference between somebody comes and tells me, oh, can you see beauty there? But it's just your imagination. There's no such thing. And somebody comes that there's a relation between brain and, this aggressiveness. You know what? It's just an illusion. To me, they are both same kind of uninformative explanations. So it shouldn't be that way. So how it becomes none that way, I guess, is if we can feel the association, what we mean with the association. Like what is for us, like forget about the great scheme of why God doing this and so on and so forth, which just a speculation, right? So for us, what is the position of association? What is the, how to say, like not the utility, but what it stands for us? For instance, I see an association between brain and aggressiveness, right? I don't see an association between microphone and the aggressiveness, for instance. What these tell me? It tells me. So, or in terms of belief, right? What it stands for in terms of belief. I guess this part is always missing, and because this part is missing, the rest sounds like we just, denying things, calling them imaginations, which makes people like me uncomfortable. Maybe I am, distorted. Maybe I'm, uncomfortable because I want to be uncomfortable. I don't know.
Maybe a part of your brain is missing, and this is causing this.
If this is the case, of course, you can freely say that, oh, because this is you. There is no such uncomfort.
Distorted scientists.
I guess this is the one way of approaching this problem, like what it means that something is associated with another thing, and what it means in terms of belief.
Another aspect I could add, I felt missing, which, it's seemingly obvious, but I guess still, I think it asks for questions. That was when we observe something and we attribute qualities to it. Some qualities might not be apparent for me, so how do I conclude that they're there? Say wisdom, for example. If I think that this table is stupid, how can someone say it's wisely made?
You can't.
Yeah.
I guess this is how, I don't know if we were discussing with Yusuf or someone else, I don't remember, but probably it was Yusuf. And I guess this is somehow related to, or I'm just trying to find the best way to approach, because I don't have a real answer. I'm just thinking. I guess it's enough if you see anything there. It doesn't have to be wisdom. Like, we don't have to agree in terms of the qualities, the specific qualities themselves. But one agreement is always there. You observe something and I observe something. Mm-hmm. So whatever you observe, you try to attribute to table or something else. So for me, it might be like a wisdom. For you, it could be the aesthetic appeal. For me, it could be ugliness. For Yusuf, it could be beauty.
So, and Musa is making a point about that, especially knowledge and wisdom aspect of it. He says that just look at the universe, you are going to observe some knowledge and wisdom, but to the extent that you are not able to, he says just go and ask to the science. Not seeing that, go and study the sciences. He says just look at the universities or the libraries. You are going to see that people did put a lot of effort and found some wisdom. So even if I don't understand what the wisdom is there, by just looking at, let's say, a university like Drexel, I would say that these guys are doing something serious here. Or by looking at an art school, so to me, for example, a food, and the guys that knows how I cook, to me, a food is good as long as
there's onion.
There's onion in it, yeah, perfect. I mean, as long as there's onion in it. And when I see a, what do they say, chef school or restaurant school,
practical
I
ones.
would say, what can be further than putting onion in food? I mean, to my simple mind, this is the perfect food. But by just passing through the restaurant, I'm saying, well, there must be some sort of a science or some sort of a perfection in cooking. This is why those guys are doing that. So I guess this sort of taking help from experts of whatever the field is. I mean, people are putting their time in it. And we observe that once you put effort in anything, you are being paid back. If you are a musician, I mean, the way that I blow of ney versus a master of a ney would be quite different because people are putting effort in there. I'm just, whenever I pass through the table once a week, I take it and just literally blow. I mean, not really make any sound out of it. So, and this is how it is. So, well, maybe, I don't see wisdom over there, but I can say that, Birkan, do you see wisdom over there? And he says that, I thought about it for 3 years, and I know that this table has a wisdom in there. He tries to explain it to me. Maybe I'm not going to understand it still, but I can say that I can make sense of saying that, even if I don't understand, it looks like this guy is knowing what he's talking about. So in this sense, summary would be listening to other people's expertise.
So this reminded me another discussion we had during the retreat, like belief being a personal issue. I guess these kind of examples that what I was maybe trying to say, that sometimes you are not alone. Even with your convictions, even with your understanding of the reality, you are not alone. You benefit from others' perceptions.
Right. That's right. But I guess in the retreat, when they were talking about this, the context was different in the sense that they were saying that I cannot share somebody else's conviction.
Yes.
Using somebody else's knowledge as a tool for my conviction, this is one thing.
But your belief process or journey cannot be by itself. Like, you cannot do it by yourself alone. Like, it requires the interaction with other people. Maybe just rephrase it. I know. That's why I wanted to rephrase it. Like,
no objection, but I was agreeing.
Okay.
You can only come so far, but like, if there's no interaction with the other fellow human beings, then it's going to be very. The process itself will be very shortcoming.
What I was going to say is belief in prophethood is a part of that. This is what that should mean.
Yeah, I didn't want to get into details. That's what I was referring to.
Yeah, good connection, actually.
But again, I don't believe in because prophet believes in. This is what was being discussed in the retreat, saying that I cannot share prophet's conviction, but the prophet is going to come up with the tools with which I can arrive to some conclusion.
Even there, I guess, even in terms of conviction, it's not like binary, just you can or you cannot. Because the fact that you are convinced, it also tells me something. Because, I don't know, maybe it's different with others, but for me, when I, for instance, encounter someone which I see, or which I think that he or she is very intelligent, right? And when you see that he is or she is convinced about something, it tells me, like, it becomes an evidence for me. Yes, I mean, still, I have to be convinced myself.
It strengthens your...
Exactly, but it contributes to my conviction.
I think, like, to me, that's the meaning of Hajj.
Another good point, yes.
If religion or, like, belief is a journey, Hajj or the Mecca is the destination. And it is a destination where we explore that there is no deity in this creation or within the universe, because that's what Kaaba symbolizes, right? It's just an empty structure And it's like in a location actually that nobody probably would really want to live, like rocks and desert, nothing else. So like you go through that journey and like Kaaba symbolizes that like there is nothing in this universe that can be the deity. That's why like when you like pray, you turn to a direction that is like it's empty inside. And Hajj is like to me like a pinnacle of your journey where you reach and then also experience and share the other people's journey and how they reach that destination. So then it becomes like an occasion or opportunity to share the experiences and learn from the others.
I forgot to say at the beginning, but we have some newcomers, the online participants and also the people here. So please do not hesitate to interrupt us. Whenever you want to say something, please just go on. You don't need to ask permission. As soon as I see your microphone is open, I will make the others shut up and yes, they let you speak. So please do not hesitate. Just speak as you want.
So going back to the first question, are we going to talk about?
Yeah, please.
Maybe I kind of jump from subject to subject.
Yeah. So I don't know if you would like to carry on with this conversation, or what do you guys think? Is it clear for you? I mean, taking part of praying. What Yukonabe was saying, I'm taking it to be a step further than what first needs to be established. But if we are agreeing on the first page, what we bare minimum understand from association versus causation, if we are a little bit having some idea about that, then let's go to deeper definitions of what we mean by association or what else.
So do you mean this distinction, just to summarize, do we mean that we see something there, something taking place, but when we try to explain it in terms of a causal relation that we know of, it doesn't fit.
Yeah.
We try to explain it with a causal relation, as Ibrahim a.s. was doing.
And for the association, Nursi is using the word of iktiran, which means they happen to be close to each other. I mean, what that means is, let's say you are in the train station, somebody is being killed, you were passing by, and they just take you to the jail saying that the crime happened right next to you, so you must be the murderer. And this sort of an association. So in terms of place and time, you happen to be there, the crime was happening there, so they say, so it must be you. Because when you were not there, there were no crime. When you were there, there were crime, so you must be the murderer. And this sort of a relation is called association. Forget about the word association, iktiran.
So this example, for instance, it's good for understanding why or how it is not causation. Like for refutation of the causation, yes, I can easily follow.
So your question is then why there is such a thing? Or what sort of what am I expected to understand out of this relation?
This is one thing, yes.
But before coming to there, do we get the impression that, yes, such an association or iktiran has nothing to do in terms of being an agent or the cause? I mean, cause meaning that real doer of the action. Because if we can separate it, then we can start. Now perspective would change, because now initially my position is, well, still the brain is doing something. In the case of brain example, this region of brain is doing something. But if I can say that, no, let's separate association, iktiran, from causation meaning that real agent, then we have to say that there must be a doer, which will be a unseen divine doer. Then we are going to go back and try to interpret or understand, then what does this association mean? But without making this distinction clear, I don't think that we can solve the problem. This is why I'm just trying to say that let's separate the two first. Causation is, being the real doer versus just happening to be in the train station right at the time. Being the real murderer versus just happening to be there is different.
Are we gonna discuss the subject, or we are gonna I don't want to go in and out. Is this the subject that we are gonna discuss, or is it gonna be just one of the subjects that we want to talk about?
So we can solve this problem because I also know that somebody else was interested in this problem, might be listening us online.
Okay.
But if they would like to join us, online participants, much more than welcome.
I just want to make a very quick comment. I had the same feeling at the retreat. Whenever we talk about cause and effect or causation or association, it seems like this is what we do. There is this observation, right? And then we come up with some sort of concepts or terminology to describe our observations. And those are, in this context, happen to be the association and the causation. And those two terms, obviously they are terminology that is used, and they define certain ideology or certain worldview. So, which means that there is actually, what is the word? There are some assumptions made when we are using those terminologies. So that should be separated. The two terminologies should be separated from each other and understand what we really mean with those terminologies. And both of the terms should be also separated from the observation itself, because it seems like there is a lot of confusion in the communication. When somebody says that there is no causal change, the first reaction is, how can you really deny for example, order in the universe? There is always for example, sun always comes from the east, right? And always sun sets from the west, at the west. So when you say that water is not the reason for the planet to exist, as if it is understood that are you denying my reality, my observation that I experience every day at every moment? So those should be really separated. If somebody says that there is no causation, that doesn't mean that you deny the order in the universe. And at the same time, when somebody says that there is association, it is not causation, it is the same thing. We need to make those points clear in order to understand each other.
Mm-hmm.
So in the I guess the society or in the teaching or the education, causation is always used almost interchangeably with the order in the universe. That's why when we cannot separate those from each other. When somebody talks about the causation, we think that it is the order in the universe that they experience.
So one reason, for instance, I'm not happy, on purpose using this happy because it may be emotional. I'm not happy with, for instance, the example you gave, this train station. Because in this example, for instance, the difference between the guy on the train station and guy sitting at home, it disappears. With respect to murder, there is no difference between them, right? But this is something I cannot manage when I leave this world. I cannot manage to make the difference between the brain, for instance, when it comes to aggression. I cannot say that the brain and the microphone is the same thing. But
they are the same in terms of being the cause of the action. They are the same in terms of being cause of it. In terms of providing an explanation or interpretation of its meaning, yes, they are different.
So I guess this difference is, how to say, not clear. When we do not make this difference clear, because when we say that, yes, we interested in causal relations and we denied it, right? And when we stop there, it doesn't help at all, because there is a difference, and I was calling it as a causation, the difference that I observed between the brain and the microphone, or brain and or the flower, I hope. There was a difference. I was initially calling it as a causation, because I thought, the brain was giving rise to aggression. Now you're saying that, no. You cannot call it causation. With respect to causation, brain and the flower doesn't have any difference. So what happened to the difference that I observed? That just like Osman was saying, there was a difference that I observed between them. It's my experience, I cannot deny it. So what is this difference then between flower and my brain with respect to aggression?
What's this difference in the sense that, like, who you need to attribute the difference?
So for
Or
instance,
the experience?
let's assume the Yusuf successfully convinced me that I cannot attribute the existence of the aggression to the brain. I say, okay, but now explain me the difference between the flower and the brain. What this difference between them corresponds to? It does not correspond to the source, the creatorship, I understood, but what it corresponds to? What does it correspond to then?
But, now we are going to the second phase of it.
I'm not sure this is second phase. That's the reason I'm insisting.
Because I think it's a second phase, because what you're trying to, as far as I understand, do is you are trying to say that as if since if a cause doesn't have, two causes are equivalent in terms of creating the result. None of them is the creator. So brain versus flower are equivalent in terms of the creation of aggressiveness. That's fine. But when you say that, then how about their relation? Because there is a sort of a relation that is different for the brain versus flower with respect to aggressiveness. What I understand the difference is when I try to interpret the meaning behind, because the thing that I am supposed to. Now, to me, it looks like, why did they put the rule, let's say in English, why is the subject verb object order? There is an already established order of language out there, which I'm just using it. I'm not questioning the rule in there.
But this is a good example, because these rules, they're not just random. They correspond to way of our understanding the world.
So, metaphorically speaking, when it comes to the relation between brain and aggressiveness versus flower and something else, the engineer of the universe willed to tell me something by comparing the brain versus aggressiveness, but not flower versus aggressiveness. And when I say that, oh creator, why didn't you put the same relation between flower and aggressiveness? You would say that, why are you questioning non-existing things? You are supposed to question existing things. The existing thing is, I put a relation between brain and aggressiveness, and out of this relation, you are supposed to get that, although the two are tied in my perception, there is no relation in between them, and through this huge gap between cause and effect, I'm supposed to understand his names. But he didn't put the same relation between flower and aggressiveness. Therefore, I cannot extract such a meaning in between them.
So, but this explanation makes it perfectly, totally random. it means
random from my point of view.
And my point of view, it's not random. That's what I'm saying.
What random?
This relation between brain and aggressiveness.
Yes.
It's from my point of view, it's not random because it's perfectly fits to the rest of the reality.
No.
Can I add something?
Again?
Go ahead, please.
So, as I was listening here, I was thinking about the word association. So why do we associate X and Y but not X and Z? So why do we associate aggression with the brain but not the plant with aggression? And I think one thing that leads to association is conjunction. And conjunction is that two things happening at the same time, right? So when you put the water and the sunlight and the soil together, then you get the flower. They happen at the same time, but because they happen at the same time, there seems to be a causal relationship. But I think what we confuse is the fact that they happen at the same time with causation. So I'm just backtracking a little bit. So in creation, in the order of creation, we experience it so that every time there's X, there's also Y. Every time you remove the part of the brain that causes aggression, right, and then the aggression disappears. Or you put water and sunlight and soil, and the plant grows. But because those things are created together, doesn't necessarily mean that X causes Y. I don't know if that helps, but I think it is conjunction that leads to association, which in our minds then we get confused with causation. I don't know if that was more confusing or not, but
No. I guess that was so clear. That was, I guess, the point. The very.
There is a relationship between
yes.
them, right? So every time X is created, Y is also created too. That's why that's what you were asking, if I'm understanding correctly, right? There is a relationship between them, but just because there's a relationship between them doesn't necessarily mean that one causes the other. It's about recognizing the relationship, but not necessarily. I mean, this is my understanding. I might be wrong too, so please feel free to correct me otherwise. But we confuse the relationship or the conjunction with. If there's a relationship, then how is it not causation? I think that's the point that we often, at least I know I myself get stuck on.
Thank you. I guess for me, the problem starts when, so this relationship, any given explanation, at least to me, shouldn't put this relationship in a position that it doesn't have any value at all. So any explanation, at least to me, if it sounds like there's a relationship you observe, yes, but it's just the random relationship, you shouldn't be worried about that. It's there just because the creator put it there, and you cannot follow it to reach something else. These kind of explanations I'm comfortable with. Yusuf was saying something.
So, I mean, the point that was made was good and clear. So, but the part that I think you are questioning, just to make it more concrete, so you're saying that why?
I'm not saying why. No.
Why? Whatever. The universe is not in a way that flowers are causing aggression.
Not at all. What I'm saying that with your explanation, when you say that they are just close, that's when you say it's just close, but there is nothing more, it's just the closeness, you're taking away from me any kind of understanding of the reality in which I use this reasoning. For instance, I give examples that I cook something, like I put first ingredient and then the second ingredient. I have to put it in the oven. And through this process, I observe something, I experience something. But if what you are saying is true, that it's nothing but just the closeness, then I cannot use this explanation. Because whatever I observe there is nothing there. It's just the closeness.
Yes.
I cannot tell you, for instance, you that, oh, Birkan Yusuf, but try to understand in this way. I'm just giving you an example, right? We always follow some process. First, you have to do something, and then you have to do something. You have to work to get some. And then I would say, no, there is no such reality.
Why not?
Because according to your explanation,
No.
there is no such thing.
So again, in terms of separating causation and association, we are clear about that, right?
I'm not clear the way you separate. That's the point. I'm not asking the why.
Because
I agree
As
that
far
they
as
are
I-
different.
yeah, as far as I understand, the problem is how am I going to interpret the relation then? I am saying that let's first separate the two, because in our minds, the relation between the two are one is creating the other. And I am saying that let's first cut this one.
Yes. It's not creating,
Yeah.
but also to me, it's not like just being at the same time. That's
Okay, I mean, there is, in my perception, still there is a relation between them, and it is purposefully put as such. But what is the purpose in between the two? Questioning this is separate.
I agree, but I'm not questioning the purpose.
No, purpose from the point of creation. So then what am I supposed to understand out of brain and aggressiveness, but not flower and aggressiveness? Right? Still, there is such a relation, but I don't know what the heck it means. And I'm trying to make sense of it, right? So, because if I just say that the brain has nothing to do with the aggressiveness, in terms of creation, yes. But if I say that flower and the brain is equivalent in terms of aggressiveness, I would be lying, because that means I am closing my eyes to the message that I am supposed to take out of this relation. And I think this is, as far as I understand, what is questionable out there. If I'm not wrong, I mean, if I'm not...
No, you are not wrong. But, so, let me give you an example. So, for instance, you can say that between you and me, somebody comes and tell that, oh, Yusuf and Birkan are brothers, like biological brothers. And to deny that, you say, oh no, they are not brothers. They are just sitting in the same room. This is one way of saying it, right? Or you can say that, oh, they are not brothers, but they are friends. You see what I mean? And my understanding, when it comes to causes, you're saying that, no, they are just sitting in the same room. That's all. They are not friends. They are just sitting in the same room.
But again, my problem is...
there are not only two types of relationships. That's the point I'm trying to make.
And what I'm trying to say is we were initially having a horizontal connection between the two. We are cutting it, and I don't want to put another horizontal relation between two.
But it's there.
That's the point. I observed this horizontal
Go
relation.
back to the order. I think that's where.
Then,
No, again, the thing that you are going to define in between the two, again, if it is not going to get connected to a vertical connection, again, what was the point of cutting the connection in the first place?
I can agree with that as long as you can define this vertical connection in a way that its manifestation on this earth, that the life I experience,
Is the connection.
will correspond to this specific kind of horizontal connection between these two.
Yes, and then this is what I was understanding as saying that, I mean, in the example of this moon versus mountain, in between this huge gap, there is a gap, the divine names start to appear. We can, I mean, it would be more fruitful, for example, to say that then what are the specific divine names which are being observed or filling the distance between the aggressiveness and the brain. In the specific example, what are the names that are going to replace the apparent causal relation? If we question that, this would be a very reasonable and constructive conversation. But if, again, we are trying to first find a horizontal relation on Earth, let's first define it with a secular mind, as if, I mean, this sounds to me like that.
I don't think it's a secular. It would be unfair because friendship in this example, it doesn't make it any secular. It's the starting point for me. That's how I live the life. I start experiencing the friendship.
Can I interject? So everyone can relate. Like there is plant, soil, water, and the sunlight. This is everybody's experience, right? And throughout the retreat, the whole point we were trying to make is that none of the apparent immediate causes that you experience are the real door agent for the existence of the plant, right? Everybody agrees on that, like, so because one thing is like you experience the plant growing within that relationship, sunlight, water, and the soil. That is your experience. Then you come up with an interpretation of the situation saying that the causes are making it, right? This is your interpretation. You observe something, then you observe, like interpret your own observation. And throughout the retreat, we said that no, this is just your interpretation, and you are wrong with that interpretation, because when you look at the immediate causes, none of them have the qualities that can bring the plant into existence. That was the whole point. And everybody agrees on that, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Then next step is we started using another term, and we call it association. So as far as our observation and experience goes, nothing has changed. We still have the soil, water, sunlight, and the plant. Now we are making another interpretation, saying that it is not the causation, which meaning that causes are the actual agents, has knowledge, power, will, and all that sort of stuff. We are saying that, okay, we call it association, and okay, what does association mean? So that's the question. How are we going to fill that term with what kind of meaning?
Yes.
As far as I understand the discussion, this is what we are trying to clarify for ourselves.
Yes. And the way I see, the people usually feel the association just by spatial temporal coexistence. They happen to be some place at the same time, and that's all.
The way I understand is, when you use the word association, first of all, it definitely doesn't refer any kind of or it doesn't give any kind of active creative power to the causes within that dynamics of the water, sun, and so on. But at the same time, that's your experience. That is the orders that you experience on day-to-day basis. And now you came up with I'm just going to use in quotation mark, a chronic terminology, which means that now you take the same experience and interpret in a way that how Quran speaks about the universe. Which means no matter what, you are going to go through that order. Once you say that, okay, I am convinced that the causes are not, or the water is not the giver of life to the plant, is not going to take you out of this creation or out of this order. You are not going to be all this super guy flying out above the clouds. You are going to be still subject to the orders in the universe. And association is merely, for me, is just another interpretation of the same experience, which connects the immediate situation with the maker of each element in that example. So God puts the water, the soil, and the sunlight together and brings the plant into the existence within that relationship. And that will never change, and it has never been changed throughout history. It has been always the same thing. And when we use association, we're just merely saying that this is the order that we are going to obey, and we have no other choice. But it is the way of God bringing things into existence. That's His order. That's how He bringing the things into the existence. When we say iqtiran or when we say association, that is the kind of interpretation that I understand. I don't know if it made any clear or it actually introduced more confusion into the subject, but
one thing I kind of felt when the word order was mentioned in the lecture that was speaking about causation, it felt I could easily replace it with natural and say it's naturally, nature is taking care out of it. When I put these things together, soil, water, and sunlight, nature makes it grow. So I think I even raised a question in that sense, like what is this order that we're talking about? Or where does it come from? What sort of qualities? But I think it goes off topic to the nature topic instead of causation.
No, like you can also like take the causation, like I don't think it is really that different. Like you take the causation and put the nature in there or put by itself in there. All those three options was defeated that like they cannot be related to like maker of the things. But you are still experiencing the same order in the universe. Order doesn't change. So then the other option comes into play for you to interpret that experience in a way that actually that you are going to connect it to the creator.
Okay. So
each element in the example.
So what I'm guessing is that I should establish this sort of order of some sort of observation. I should understand that there is an order in the universe, and then I can get into this questioning part. Why does it always occur that when these three are together, it's there, the plant grows? Is this the correct line of thinking? So, what I mean by that, it's as if there's like this order is this prerequisite. I have to understand that. I have to confirm that there is an order in planting trees. And so when I plant it, now I have to ask the question, who planted it?
Yeah, if you deny the order, like, I mean, where, like, like you can kind of like, your first step is already wrong. Like, where can you really like start from or like put your like.
That makes sense. And that would automatically refute randomness in that sense. I mean, they're the opposite.
And when it comes to like Yusuf's example, like the brain relationship versus aggressiveness versus the flower, discussing why brain doesn't like get aggressive or aggressiveness doesn't appear in relation to the flower, discussing that is an absurd like thing because that's not what you experience in life. You just don't experience that. So what is the point of questioning like at all? So like entertaining that conversation, even like it's a dead end, it's not going to take you anywhere. That's how I see it.
No, I agree with that. It will be just speculation.
Yeah, like you're just gonna like, I mean, it's not something that's concretely you can like build on something type of.
So what then the question becomes, instead of trying to extract meaning out of the lack of relation between aggressiveness and flower, I need to try to understand what does the relation between brain and aggressiveness mean. And mean in terms of how it points to its maker. Right?
Yes, like I think that is the main difference, like in terms of like defining the terms, that is the main difference between the association and the causation.
Yes. And if we just take it further, what do we mean by names of the creator? Everything then becomes names of the creator. It's not like God have 99 names, and we are trying to dissect the relation between brain and aggressiveness into those 99 names.
What is available to us as far as knowing the, like, if we have come to the conclusion that, okay, there is a maker, then the question is, how do I know about him? So, and what we are like, what we really have as far as like getting to know the creator or God It is just like still that order that you are submerged in. And through that order, you can extract meanings or attributes of the creator. And association technically brings that understanding to look at the experiences and universe from a perspective that is going to constantly make that connection with him and extract different meanings from your experiences.
And different in the sense that the thing itself, like just the relation in there which you experience without referring to anything further. Just the relation between brain and aggressiveness means there is a maker of the relation between brain and aggressiveness. Or the one that extracts water out of stone. In itself, that means like the thing itself is directly point to it itself is a name. This is what I'm trying to say.
Let's like make it more relevant. Like for example, like child and fatherhood, right? This is something that I am experiencing lately, so like I can relate to more. So in order for you to really experience the mercy, God's mercy in the creation, like truly feel it, there needs to be a like father and child relationship or mother and child relationship. You experience that, the manifestation of the name of the most compassionate within that relationship. In order for anybody to be able to really like feel that, like you need to have that relationship. But thinking that your child is the reason for the feeling compassion that you have, that is the causation, and that's where the problem is. So in that scenario, association is technically you need to have that relationship to experience the manifestation of like God's name of compassionate and merciful one. And making the connection with him, like understanding that, yeah, now like 3 months ago, I didn't feel this way. I never like experienced that feeling. Now I am experiencing the feeling within this relationship. So directing that feeling to the child itself is seeing the child as God and having the understanding of the causation. But instead of like knowledge, thinking that the source is the child, because if you take the child out of the equation, the feeling is also gone. And so instead of thinking that way, you know that you still go to the same experience, same relationship, and with the understanding that it is not the child who is giving me this feeling, it is God's manifestation within this relationship. So that is the reason why I wanted to emphasize in the order, because this is the only way for human being to be able to understand God's manifestations or the attributes. So you need the creation, you need the order.
The thing
for that's necessary for your own learning. Go ahead.
To differentiate these different kinds of relations then from what you are saying is what different names you experience. So every relationship that we experience, they teach us different qualities or different names of the Creator, right? You experience some names of the Creator between child and the father. You experience, let's say dominantly, I don't want to reduce the relation on a few names, but you dominantly experience, which can change from time to time, certain names between one kind of relationships and some other certain names with another kind of relationship. Okay. So, and to me is the important thing is with every relationship comes a different kind of connection to the reality, different names, different qualities. And the relationship So that's the reason I'm trying to say that, what kind of relation is there between brain and aggressiveness, or whatever example it is important. It's not that, we can put any relation between them. No, because the different relationships comes with different understandings, different qualities, different names. If you reduce any kind of relationship to just, happen to be the same time, same where, it defeats this understanding. It tells that, the experience you have, it's not that rich. There's only one kind of relationship, which is, they happen to be same place at the same time. This kind of understanding, this kind of approach that I don't like. Because when two things happen at the same time, for instance, when I make sound with my fingers at the same time, this is not the experience I have when I observe the flower and the seed. It's not the same experience. So if somebody comes and you discard the causation, instead there is just, they happen to be same place at the same time. I cannot accept that. That's the point.
That's the thing. Like, it's not like they happen to be like that way. I understand your point. Like, for example, like you cannot have that. Like, you cannot truly experience that mercy in your relationship with a rock.
Yes.
I get it, but where I am not really clear with, maybe I am not really understanding you well, or I have a problem with, since I don't have this similar, like same kind of relationship with the rock versus the child, there must be something unique and special to that relationship, thinking that way and starting like investigating some sort of relationship within that.
I agree. Yes. Again,
sounds like you are still like going to the point that like there is still something inherent.
Yes. I shouldn't
properties there that I should be investigating.
I shouldn't attribute this difference to things themselves.
It has nothing to do with the things themselves.
Yes.
Like still, like it is true that like you have to value your relationship with your child versus the rock, but again, like making the connection with the maker, like it has nothing to do with the immediate like figures in the picture.
And I think the best way, I totally agree with you. I see the point, yes. And I think the best way to explain this, it's not saying that they happening at the same time, same way. This is not the best way to explain it, I guess.
But take it this way. I agree, and now I guess the picture is clear. But there is an idea coming. Idea is this is creating that, and you are trying to refute this idea. And while trying to solve that, starting to talk about the other one is just helping the one who is initially saying that, yeah, I am saying the same thing, it's creating that. I am saying that there's a relation between the two. It sounds, this is why, in my understanding, first, cutting this strong relation of, to me, 30 years of education needs to be clearly done first, saying that I used to think that this was doing that. It has nothing to do with that. Cut it. Clearly cut it. And then you say that, so what? But why are they together? What does that mean? Okay, now that I am arriving to a conclusion that this is being done by a divine, therefore the relation between the two are being put by the divine, then I will start and say that, then what does this relation mean? How am I going to interpret this relation? Instead of denying that there's no relation. But without doing that, because when you ask this question, another person sitting next to you would say, yes, I agree with him, he or she would say, yes, brain still has something to do with aggressiveness, because when we don't put the brain, the aggressiveness is not there. And it becomes like a never-ending chicken and egg thing.
I agree, yes, there's always danger that the difference will be attributed to brain again.
Yeah. And while we are trying to find the answer to what you are asking, we should look for a vertical relation, not because if I am asking it in the same cup with the person who is sitting, for example, practically speaking, in the domain of retreat. A person who is not even clear about distinction between causation and association, once I start using the terminologies you are using, it sounds like this, you are being as if sounding on the same boat with the other person, or at least the other person would perceive it as such. This is why I am perceiving you as such too.
I agree, that's the reason, but there is another side also, the way I perceive you. What you are doing is, you're still putting a name, for instance, like association. And as soon as you put a name, right, I expect something to be, it corresponds to this name. Through my experiences, like what experience I have in this reality corresponds to this name. Mm-hmm. And when you, to me, like the way I understand, mistakenly choose the experience that I have when two things happen at the same time and make it the equivalent to association, then from my perspective, I would say this guy doesn't know what he's speaking of, because they are not saying.
Can I give another example? I think that would be also like more relatable. Throughout the years, especially like 4 or 5 years like ago, that used to happen a lot more. You're in a discussion setting like this with some people, and there may be someone that is a lot more knowledgeable than the others. And you have some internal frictions, problems, questions, but you don't clearly express it, or you are, for whatever reason, you are kind of holding on to them for yourself. And in the sessions like similar to this, then because of the subject that you study, like let's say Yusuf says something that is actually, it's just like perfect answer that you were looking for. That's something I experienced a lot. That's why I wanted to like give this example to show the danger in a way. So like there are two ways to like interpret this like event, right? So I had problems, and Yusuf gave the answers. So that guy must really know. He must be really wise, and he must have this like almost like superhuman like or supernatural powers to see my heart, to know what the problems are that I am struggling with.
He's a clever guy.
And then he gives me my answer accordingly. So that's one way of looking at it, right? And that would be purely causation. So what did I do? Like I just like put him in a position that like actually he's a deity and I am worshiping him because I expect the answer from him directly.
So
that is causation. And as far as association, I am gonna still need this kind of setup to be able to find my answers, because God is absolute and he speaks to his creatures through his creation. If one day you want to talk to the creator directly, like there is no way like you can just like go up in the sky with an elevator so you can see him. There is no such thing. You still need to have this universe and this.
Wasn't that what happened with
Ascension? That's why I refer to it. So like in this kind of setup, like you have problems, you have questions, and you are looking for answers as a result of this discussion or like another discussion. You get your answers somehow again through Yusuf, let's say. So in the association, understanding of association, see, the experience didn't change, but your interpretation of the event changed. You know that, you clearly see that he has no understanding of you, and he may not even care about what your problems are. Maybe he's very selfish, how do you know? So like, you know that whoever knows your like, wherever that like answer comes from, actually knows your heart, knows your needs, knows your expectations, and he is delivering the answers at the right time through the right people. So two different scenarios, the same situation, two different, actually not scenarios, but interpretation. So in one scenario, you just like reconfirm your understanding of like causes making the things. In the other scenario, you find yourself in a position that you are very impotent and delicate addressee of the creator, and he knows you in every situation and he delivers your needs. But when he delivers those needs, he still delivers them in the order that he creates. That is, for me, that's how I formalize it, like causation versus the association. This is how I formalize it in my head.
And right after the association topic, Mursi is studying what you just said, actually.
Which is what?
Mirrors. Because in the Iktiran, topic of Iktiran, Mursi gives an example from himself as well. Initially, he talks about association Iktiran in the outside world, with the example of this bordering channels, pipes.
Mm-hmm.
And then he says, my brothers are saying that our teacher came here. When he was not here, we didn't know. He came, therefore we learned, so he is the cause of our learning. So this sort of a relation was there. And he's saying that, no, brothers, you are mistaken. The way that I am being able to explain something and your understanding are being created simultaneously. One is not the cause of the other. So he explains that. In the next topic, he says that this is the case, but this doesn't mean that you should destroy the mirror. Know that the teacher is a mirror, and the mirror is with which you are able to observe the names.
Which means, like, destroying the mirror means, like, you need that kind of setup.
Yes.
You like don't like think that like saying that, oh, it's not related to the person who is like knowing you or giving you the answer doesn't mean that like kill Yusuf or like expel him out of the discussion.
So if you would like to observe such a thing, then the creator has chosen to reflect on Nursi in this case. Why Nursi but not Osman? I don't know. I mean, this is not something to me to question. So he has chosen Nursi as the mirror in this case. So, but take him nothing more than a mirror. So Osman might have been the mirror. Yeah, but I don't know. I mean, this is something again based on non-existence. But the way that now I'm looking at Nursi, if I say that, but since Nursi is chosen, but not Osman, there must be something special with Nursi? No. This is again going into wrong direction. Same thing with why not flower but brain? Because there is a relation between brain and aggressiveness, but no, this is not the way to go. Just look at the brain or look at Nursi, and when you look at Nursi, know that what you are seeing is not Nursi, but manifestation of names. As long as I start seeing the things as such, then everything becomes a mirror in the sense of what? The mirror itself doesn't have any innate quality in it. The creator wanted to reflect Risales from this mirror.
His knowledge.
Now it became Nursi. If it was another mirror, it was going to be something different.
So beauty of this example, at least to me, is that he doesn't stop when he says they are created simultaneously. It doesn't stop that, and this is not the definition. Definition is being the mirror. That's the part I was asking. I was not asking, why he was reflected by the Nursi, but not Yusuf.
Mm-hmm.
No, I was asking this mirror. Like, give me something which will be a definition of this relationship.
Okay.
And there, the answer is not simultaneous creation.
Mm-hmm.
The answer is being the mirror. I mean,
yes.
Meaning mirror doesn't have any inherent quality.
Because it has a meaning form. Like I can, understand the explanation.
I get it. But when we were talking about mountain versus the stars and saying that it was, to me, exact same thing almost. In between the names arise, because there is a gap. And now, in the example of mirror, again, the names are arising. So
I'm not objecting your example. It could be like clear to you because you already knew that maybe. I don't know. I mean, I don't care how you understand the example yourself. The point is what I understand from there. I mean, I was after something like a mirror, and all I hear is they are being created simultaneously. I mean, I'm not saying that your example is, the wrong or doesn't convey. No.
I'm just trying to see why it didn't, because I thought this became saying the same thing as using different words. This is how I look at it, but maybe not.
So we have 40 minutes. If there are no other comments, questions about this topic,
So
go ahead. Yeah.
is the topic clear to you? Because you said you had questions at the beginning about this subject.
Yes, this is much clearer, at least, yes. I think this would be always an issue because this is, I don't know, like how I'm immersed to the reality.
Yeah,
I always
think,
will have
it's not a
problems.
one-time thing either.
Yeah,
You just have to reflect on it and revisit the subject. I don't know, a few times before you kind of put everything in place. At least that's how it works for me.
But yeah, after listening you guys, at least to me, it's more clear now. Like we are at least started to put something there instead of causation.
Okay. What was the point that was clear to you, or what was the point that still you left with question marks?
I think that, shifting connections, association to causation made sense. Causation to association, cutting the attributes, saying that causes do not have the attributes made sense. But when the word order came into the subject, I started wondering, what are they talking about? Because it was just assumed that we knew what that meant.
At least every time when I refer to the order, what I really mean is for example, you don't see one day watermelon growing on the orange tree.
Mm-hmm.
You always pick up the watermelon from the ground. Orange is coming from the orange tree. There is that kind of order that you observe in the universe.
And that order, I would say, this is why I think it kept on questioning. It's not a must. I can't say if it's not correct to say if I put a seed and I put those three causes, it must grow. That's not how the order is defined, as far as I understand.
True.
This is why I was questioning it. Why are we saying?
It's not very mechanical. If you put the seed in the soil, you will always get the same result.
Yep.
That's not the case. No.
Yeah, and then saying, well, we need those three because order, and that just brought the question, what do you mean by that?
Because order makes me conclude that there is one and only creator. It is one of the strongest evidences for me to conclude that there is one creator. So if there was not such an order, I wouldn't conclude with one creator. I mean, even if it was all beautiful things happening everywhere, order means oneness. Everything being, because in terms
organized by someone.
Yeah, in terms of both space and time, you are saying that everything is in harmony. And everything being in harmony means everything is being controlled by one and only. So the order makes me conclude that this universe has a single maker. Without order, I wouldn't be able to arrive to such a conclusion. This is why, it is one of the so much central things in existence that tells me about my maker.
Let's close then, inshallah.
سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم وآخر دعواهم أن الحمد لله رب العالمين الفاتحة